welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Larry Gardner, your PA voice of the Rome Braves, and of course, Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee, our fabulous producer. And you can find us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. Our personal Twitters at JJ Get You One for myself, at LG for real though for Larry, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, and at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, who is out tonight umpiring a few baseball games out in the Woodstock area. How's everyone doing tonight? Larry, we'll start it with you, buddy.
Everything is going well, gentlemen. I hope y'all are having a wonderful Thursday. Here is just the life of a wonderful dad with a bunch of boys. Extracurricular activities, track meets, the wonderful world of being a proud papa. But everything is well this week, fellas. Thank you for asking. How about yourselves?
Wayne, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm doing pretty well. My bracket is a complete mess, and I'm pretty much going to have to start getting ready for baseball season, I guess.
Larry, thanks for asking. I'm doing great myself. I appreciate it. My bracket's still somewhat intact somehow. I kind of went with a little outside the lines bracket, as if you could remember from last week, but I'm doing great. Tip of the cap to Japan. 3-2 winners over the United States in the World Baseball Classic. Some call it an epic at-bat between Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout to end the World Baseball Classic. But I thought it was a cool stat. Over 90% of televisions in Japan were tuned into that match. What a great, great result for the game of baseball. What's on tap for today's show? Braves spring training news and notes. Nick Saban versus Nate Oates, and a Sweet 16 preview, and of course some NFL pro days around the country. We'll talk about those, talk about who we liked, who we didn't like, and stuff like that. Let's start off with those Atlanta Braves, your 2021 world champs. They open up the season in Washington, D.C. versus the old Nationals, the NL East rivals, on March 30th. Let's talk news and notes as spring training is coming to an end right now. Look, we got to talk the big story. It's Vaughn Grissom and Braden Shoemake, both the shortstops who played very well in spring, hit the ball pretty well. Grissom made a couple errors, but we all saw both of those players will start in AAA Gwinnett as the Stripers start their season as well. Larry, your thoughts on the move? Was it surprising to you?
Somewhat, considering the comments that Brian Snicker made a week and a half to 2 weeks prior, saying that we will take one of them with us when we go to Atlanta, and then you find out that they both get sent to Gwinnett, kind of makes my spidey senses start tingling that the man, the myth, the legend that is Alex Anthopoulos has a plan up his sleeve, because as I will call him, as valuable as a tool as Orlando Arcia is, I think we saw enough from Vaughn Grissom last season to allow him to be able to learn on the fly, especially if Marcell Ozuna continues his hot spring at the start of the season. He'll be able to cover up for some things, but I can understand from Brian Snicker's point to be able to have somebody there that you can trust while your two horses that are ready to take the reins get some more, I don't necessarily want to call it sharpening of their skills while in AAA. All of this just seems to me as if there is a big, big deal on the horizon, and I just can't figure it out because, as we well know, Mr. Anthopoulos keeps things very close to the chest when he's getting ready to make deals.
No, that's a very, very good point, Larry. As well as I know, he's one of the best general managers in baseball, and he's always looking to make his team better. I was not surprised by this move whatsoever. I kind of thought this would happen. I thought they would go with Arcia and Adrian Anza. One, because both those players were on the world championship team and had a pretty significant role in the second half of the season. And Arcia, you mentioned the bat, had 4 RBIs in a spring training game earlier this week where most of the players were reserves. Arcia was about the only starter on the roster. I think that was Tuesday. And he had a 3-run homer. Again, another RBI added on. I think he went 2 for 3 with a walk. So Arcia's tearing the cover off the ball. He can play that position. I like it. And it's same with Erie Adrianza. He knows how to play the position. He's familiar with Alex Anthopoulos and the way the Braves do things. You give Vaughn Grissom and Shoemake that time to develop at AAA Gwinnett for the Stripers. With Soroka, by the way, who was sent down today to get his season started in AAA Gwinnett after the spring training start yesterday, where he threw 24 first-inning pitches. So you'll see Vaughn Grissom down there. You'll see Shoemake. You'll see Soroka. They're going to get some work in AAA, and I expect all three of them to be key contributors to this 40-man roster throughout the season. It really is going to come down to this, guys. If Arcia is hitting the ball very well and playing the position well, it's a bonus. You can bring Vaughn Grissom up whenever. Because here's the deal, Larry. We all know last year Vaughn Grissom was an A ball, got promoted to double A ball, and maybe 2.5, 3 weeks later of double A ball, he was in the big leagues. Then he hits his 5 home runs in his first 40 or so at bats, tearing the cover off the ball. So we have seen that, but I like the move. I really do. Again, Arcia, Adrianza, key contributors to the 2021 World Championship team. They know how to get it done. If they start off slow, you put them in. If they start off hot, well, it's a bonus and it's a good problem to have for Brian Snitker. Wayne, I know you probably won't have any Braves thoughts, but Jacob deGrom and your Rangers getting ready to start off the season. How you feeling about baseball?
I'm feeling pretty good about baseball now. Texas opens at home on the 30th versus Philadelphia, and I think that game's on ESPN. Plus, the next 2 games versus Philly are going to be on ESPN and Fox, I think. But interesting side note on the Texas pitching, 2 of their relief pitchers, Jonathan Hernandez from Memphis, Tennessee, and Will Smith from Noonan, Georgia. So there's a little bit of a Texas connection there.
Yeah, Will Smith, also part of that 2021 World Championship team, key contributor out of the bullpen there. Larry, any final thoughts on Vaughn Grissom and Shoemake going down to AAA as well as Soroka there? We saw that news a couple hours ago.
No, I think, and I mentioned this on Twitter not too long before we went live, that with all the talent that will start the season at Gwinnett, depending on how long they stay, Gwinnett will probably have the best record in AAA baseball for at least the first half of the season. Because with Soroka and if Ian Anderson can get his bearings together while down there too, I mean, the Stripers fans are going to be lit for about the first couple of months of the season. But with all jokes aside, I really do think this is a smart decision by the Braves brass, because you got talented kids, but you don't want them to lose confidence. And especially with Michael Soroka, seeing him being able to get some meaningful innings worked here at spring training, I bet he is chomping at the bit to get back to Atlanta as fast as possible. And anything that you can get from him that is positive, if we get 50 to 60% of what he was in 2019, it can only be a help to this Braves team this year.
Yeah, and that leads us right into the next question. Will Michael Soroka be back in the starting rotation this season and be effective? The way you answered that question, you think just like me. I think the youth and his age is huge. I've never seen an athlete come back from 2 Achilles tears. He could be the first, in my knowledge, to do it in sports history. Again, at ATL Prime Sports or at JJ Get You One, please let me know. I've been trying to find a player that has come back from 2 Achilles tears. This would be awesome. If he is half as good as he was in 2019, I'm right there with you. That is such a huge, huge tip of the cap to Brian Snitker and what he can do late in the season. I think he'll be, again, I I'm hoping as a fan he'll be effective, but I'm not. I'm not going to hold my breath on it. Let's face it, folks. Again, I haven't seen a player come back from 2 Achilles injuries. He is young. He's got his youth, and that's a benefit. I think he'll be back in the rotation. I think mid-May to early June. Todd thinks so as well. TC, he thinks mid-May, early June for Soroka. And if he's back and he's dealing again half as good as he was in 2019, that's their fifth starter right there, and he can work his way up. You've had another great outing in spring from I can't think the pitcher's name is going to take the fifth spot. My buddy just texted me. Let me go look at my notes. We were just talking about this
Dylan
before
Dodd.
we got on air. Schuster. Schuster's looking like he's going to be the fifth starter with the 1.45 ERA in spring. So I'm right there. I'm right there with Michael Soroka. I'm in his corner, but I'm not going to hold my breath on him coming back and being the 2019 Mike Soroka that we all fell in love with and said this guy can be a Cy Young winner. I'm going to hold judgment until I see him come back and pitch a full season, because he won't be back to his normal self till probably 2024, folks. Larry, what say you? Do you think he'll be effective by the end of the season, and how effective do you think he will be?
I am with you guys. I think if he keeps this current trajectory that he's on, I think we will begin to see whether or not he's got his A-lister stuff probably about around the first, second week of June. Now, my honest-to-God gut feeling, because I know his mindset is, he wants to prove the entire world that just prove him like, hey, y'all saying I can't do it, I can't come back from 2 Achilles tears. Well, let me show you what I'm made of. And the beautiful thing from the Braves is they've got so many arms that are well versed to be able to carry that fifth starter spot, whether it's Schuster, whether it's Dylan Dodd, whether it comes back and it is Michael Soroka, or Ian Anderson has a redevelopment of himself and he comes back and takes that spot. It's a sweet problem to have if you're Atlanta. But to answer the question and keep it direct, I honestly do think by the end of this year, barring any injuries or setbacks, I think he is going to, I would probably say, get back to at least about 75% of what he was when he was an ace, pretty much, for lack of a better term, for the Atlanta Braves. And that's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm rooting for that as a fan. But like you guys are saying, I'm not going to go to the sport bet line and put money on it. I'm just, as a hopeful fan and as a rooter for somebody who I want to see succeed, I just believe that he's going to be determined enough to be successful by the end of this season.
That about does it for our Braves and MLB talk. We'll move on. A general sports topic. I talked about it in the pregame. By now, we've all heard the news from Tuscaloosa and the basketball world, and football-wise, for that matter. We heard Saban's press conference where he seems to call out head basketball coach Nate Oates. I'm anxious to hear your thoughts, Wayne. I'm going to throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on this Saban versus Oates feud in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? Wayne, you first.
I think this could have probably been better handled in private in somebody's office instead of out in the public, because to me, stuff like this is not very productive for the school or for either one of the programs. And, it's always better if the coaches of each one of the sports kind of supports each other instead of taking digs at each other. But, maybe Saban feels like he's the big boss leader down there and he can tell the other coaches what to do.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see Nick Saban do that. You've always seen, in Athens at least, Kirby Smart the last 5-6 years be supportive, going to every home Georgia basketball game, supporting the coach, whether it was Tom Crean. Now you have Coach White in there. I was very shocked to see Nick Saban say this. I could see him easily taking a stab saying, over in the football department, we do it this way. But to directly quote Nate Oates and say, this isn't a wrong place at the wrong time situation look, a lady lost her life in the other situation. And in the football situation, defensive back Tony Mitchell eluded the police at over 140 miles an hour, with weapons and drug charges pending. So to me, the wrong place at the wrong time is you standing at a corner street and a bus loses control and takes your life. That's the wrong place at the wrong time. I think he was twisting the knife. And I'm like Wayne, football coach, basketball coach, especially with the basketball coach vying for an Elite Eight and possible national championship, you'd want to see a little more alliance there.
Yeah,
But very shocked overall, in general, to see Nick Saban make those comments. Wayne, you want to jump
Bruce,
in one more time?
Bruce Pearl wouldn't have ever done anything like
that. We will see. Larry, what are your thoughts on the Saban versus Nate Oates feud in Tuscaloosa, Alabama?
Yeah, man, I had thoughts like you two until I seen Nick there in the gym at Alabama, wishing the Tuscaloosa, Alabama men's basketball team off as they were headed to Louisville for their Sweet 16 matchup. So it's like, we've all seen Coach Saban be snarky before. This is not new for him. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's him and Lane Kiffin going back and forth, him and Ed Ogeron going back and forth, him and the coach at Texas A&M that came from Florida State. What's his name? I can't think off the top of my head.
Jimbo Fisher.
We've seen, Jimbo. We've seen them go at it and take shots at one another through the media. At first, I was kind of like you guys, where this could have been handled behind the scenes, behind closed doors in a meeting. Hey, but Coach Saban, being the prestigious individual that he is, felt the need to say what he said and do what he did. But today, as I said earlier, he's in the gym with the Alabama Crimson Tide men's basketball team, giving them kudos and cheering them on as they get ready to depart for Louisville for their Sweet 16 matchup. So it's kind of like, well, it looked bad at first, but now him doing that tells me, I guess they hashed it behind the scenes anyway, and bygones could be bygones. But originally, this was a bad look overall for the program, and it didn't need to be handled that way. But we know Coach Saban, he's going to take a shot whenever he has the opportunity. So that's my thoughts on it. Hopefully, it doesn't sidetrack Alabama's quest to win a championship in its basketball team in the same manner that their football team goes and achieves championships year after year, it almost seems like.
Yeah, very interesting situation in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Again, we all mimic very similar thoughts. I was shocked, not in the fact that Nick Saban jawed at another coach, just the fact that it was Alabama versus Alabama. So we're all very similar thought process there. It's very shocking out of Tuscaloosa, and hopefully everybody kisses and makes up, for lack of a better term. Let's go into our NFL topic for the day. Some top NFL some top NFL draft prospects have put their talents on display at their NFL Pro Days. Which Pro Day interested you the most? Larry, I'll throw it to you first, man. There's a bunch of good ones, some bad ones, some okay ones. Which one stood out to you the most?
Well, the Georgia one stood out to me number one as 1A, and then Ohio State as 1B. Reason being, I wanted to see what Jalen Carter would be like at his Pro Day, and we saw the tape. We saw him not being able to finish drills and things of that nature. So it was disappointing, but at the same time, because I'm a Falcons fan and character issues aside, I still want him to be available at number 8. Here's the deal. We've known the Atlanta Falcons draft history for many, many years, and they have absolutely stayed and shied away from anybody who has had any character issues whatsoever, which is why I'm like, if you know defense is your biggest need and you've got somebody there that's a game changer, can you avoid the potential for something that could alter this man's life? Well, if you ask Arthur Blank that question and Terry Fontenot, they're probably going to say no. They don't want to avoid it. It's just, we'll do what we can to keep this wonderful, pristine spot spotless and blemishless image over our football team. But to see guys like him and Nolan Smith and guys that are projected to be around by the time the Atlanta Falcons draft, that was intriguing to me. And to also see the Ohio State draft pro day, to see C.J. Stroud, and even just look at Marvin Harrison Jr., who's not even eligible for the draft, and just to see that, man, the rich get richer, man, and it's just a beautiful thing to see these kids have the opportunity to compete. But as a Falcons fan, man, it was great to see the Georgia Pro Day, and I hope they finally get at least one of 4 potential first-round Georgia football players.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I tweeted that out the other day as well. Go check out LG for real though for the Braves tweet from we talked about earlier. And I tweeted that out about Mel Kiper. He has 4 Georgia Bulldogs going in the first round. I say there could be another 5 spot. That'd be 9 or even 10 players, again, if everything goes properly, in the past 2 first rounds that's gone away from Georgia. So that's just a tip of the cap to Kirby Smart. I'm right there with you. C.J. Stroud impressed me undeniably in his pro day, put every throw where he wanted it. Stetson Bennett at Georgia is another one as well. I'm right there with you. I know we sound very similar, but Stetson Bennett made a lot of good throws. And he looked like he increased his draft stock by a round or 2 since his nonsense incident in Dallas with the law. So looks like Georgia players are moving up the board minus Jalen Carter, and that's always a good thing. A pro day that stood out to me was over in Auburn, Alabama. You had Cam Newton come back and throw at his alma mater where he won a Heisman and a national championship in the same season, and I call him one of the greatest college football players of all time. If he had 4 years, who knows what would have happened. But Cam Newton threw the ball, looked okay, said there ain't 32 better than me in the NFL. And, it was just interesting. He looked good throwing the football, but that's always against air. Cam, your last 4 or 5 starts in the NFL, you didn't win a single game. You had a negative touchdown to interception ratio, which is never good. I hope he gets signed. I think he could work his way into a starting role again in the NFL in the right situation, but it would have to be just that, the right situation. So that's why I say Auburn was a very, very interesting pro day as well. There were several good ones around the country in recent weeks. You saw, again, Auburn. You had Alabama. Look, lots of talent at Alabama in and out every year. Wayne, what say you? Was there a pro day that interests you around the country or someone that stood out pre-draft here?
Well, I got a bit of a confession to make. On my last trip to the sports buffet, I filled up my plate with basketball, NASCAR, Formula One racing, and baseball and hockey. And I didn't have enough room on my plate for any NFL stuff. So I'm going to have to go back later and get me some NFL for dessert. But right now, I got nothing.
I like it. I like it. There's a lot going on. The basketball tournament was going on. Memphis got hosed, in my opinion. That's a discussion for a different day if we want to talk about it. Larry, any final thoughts on NFL Pro Day prospects that stood out to you?
This guy he hasn't really been under the radar, for lack of a better term, but in terms of draft hype, there isn't a lot surrounding him, but I'm hoping to goodness that maybe with a second round or even third round pick, that Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama is still available when the Falcons draft, because this guy is an absolute stud waiting to happen. And whoever gets him, they're going to have themselves a serviceable running back for at least 6-7 years. The kid is just amazing. Coach Saban speaks highly of him, and I'm not even an Alabama fan, but just being able to watch him in high school at Dalton High and then seeing him the first couple of years there at Georgia Tech and then taking that next leap of faith there at Alabama and then him having a great pro day as well, man, I'm just rubbing my hands together, just like, come on, man, just let the chips fall where they may and see some good things fall for Jahmyr Gibbs, man. But he really did impress me with his pro day.
Yeah, he did. Moved laterally well, caught the ball out the backfield well, and he can run through the tackles. You're right. He is a underrated running back, and running backs do not go in the first round like they used to. They used to come off the shelves. Remember that, fellas, back in the 90s? 4 or 5 running backs every first round. Boom, 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 boom. Not anymore, folks. Not anymore. Well, let's go ahead and move on from the NFL to our Sweet 16 preview. Sweet 16's underway as we speak right now. Michigan State and Kansas State are underway, and they're in a nail biter of a game. We have let's see the score right now. Actually, Kansas. Excuse me. Let me refresh this score here. Looks like Kansas State is up 3 late in the second half on Michigan State. I do have Kansas State in my Elite Eight, so I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, right now, our Sweet 16 preview begins, and from 68 to 16, let's preview that Sweet 16 and redo our Final Fours. I'll tee this one off. Look, I'm going to go back and look at my bracket here, and I put Arizona in the Final Four, and right now you got to lean with Alabama, Brandon Miller, and Nate Oates. He seemed to do a really good job. That's why I didn't pick him in the Final Four. I thought this was going to be a distraction, the off-field incident, but he has done a really good job of coaching his team, putting blinders on as a horse racer would, and looking forward at the prize. Hats off to you, Coach Oates, because that is a huge distraction. It was still in the news cycle, as we all know. You still get more and more updates about the story. So I will replace Alabama with Arizona, and I'm going with my same 3. I think Tennessee's lockdown defense is really good. Coach Barnes is having a field day on defense. I mean, their field goal percentage in the tournament is unbelievable defensively, what they're holding opponents to. They're physical. They get up and down the floor with their backcourt. So I'm sticking there. I like Sean Miller and Xavier. The Musketeers are playing extremely well, and I like the Zags. I've said it this year. I think they're going to make a run simply because nobody expected them to this year. So I'm sticking with my Final Four and Sweet 16 preview. I don't really see anything other than some cool notes here I got. It's 11 total conferences represented this year in the Sweet 16. You have Arkansas seeking their 3rd straight Elite Eight, and you have 2 teams making their debut in the Sweet 16 in Princeton and FAU. So a couple notes there. That's about my final thoughts. Larry, I'll throw it to you, then we'll go to Wayne for your Sweet 16 and your new Final Four. I'm keeping 3 of them, and I'm just replacing Alabama. What say you, Larry?
Alabama is still going to win it all. I'm telling you, especially with what I'm telling you, everything is setting up for Alabama because it's always been since the jump, it's been them against the world. Now it's them against their own family in their own backyard. So the main reason I said them was why not us? But I've still got Alabama winning it all. I want to give a shout out to my Miami Hurricanes, who are both got women and men in the Sweet 16. I don't foresee them beating Houston. My championship game is still the same, Alabama-Houston. I thought Kansas would be in there, but they choked at an inopportune time. And I think not having Coach Self on the sideline really did hurt them in their tournament run. But the one team in the Sweet 16 that I'm really, really, really excited about seeing, and y'all gonna laugh at me for saying it, but it's UCLA. You know, the Wizard of Westwood, who was once John Wooden, and the Bruins. Anytime they're this deep into the tournament, Sweet 16, Elite Eight, Final Four, is nothing but good for college basketball. I do believe UConn is going to be able to beat Arkansas. I think Texas will take it over Xavier. I don't think my Hurricanes get to see past this weekend, but it is what it is. I had picked Kansas State to move on. I had picked Tennessee to move on. I neither did have Creighton nor Princeton in my Sweet 16 there, but it's awesome to see Princeton getting it in at Tiger Spirit, Tiger Pride. But I'm just loving how everything is falling out or working out, for lack of a better term. But just don't be shocked to see UCLA shock some people, and if they work their way into the Final Four, to be very competitive or a very competitive out for the teams that are still left behind.
Yeah, I'm glad you said UCLA. Before you go, Wayne, I'll make a cool little comment about UCLA. You know, the men's team is in the tournament. The women's team is in the tournament, both in the Sweet 16, and they got a brother and sister on each team. So you have Jamie and Gabriella Jaquez, excuse me, both in the Sweet 16. So pretty cool note there. Wayne, your thoughts on the Sweet 16? A quick preview and your new Final Four since the bracket got ripped in half and thrown in the trash can.
Well, is Cronin still the coach at UCLA, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, the guy used to be at Cincinnati. And,
correct.
Every time I see him, I still think Cincinnati. I don't know why. But as far as the Sweet 16 goes, I mean, there's some teams in there that were astonishing to have gotten in there. Florida Atlantic being one of them. And, you know, I know they probably want to go farther than I've got them going. But if I'm going to say what my new Final Four is based on what's left, here's what I wish would happen. I wish it would be Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, and Arkansas. And I would really like to see the final game come down to Tennessee versus Texas, so we can have a UT squared championship game, Battle of the Oranges, just like the Orange Bowl was with Clemson and Tennessee in that game. That'd be a pretty cool matchup. UT versus UT.
Battle of the UTs, and I guarantee you UT would win.
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
No, that's a great storyline. You could have 3 SEC programs in the Final Four, and Eric Musselman, head coach for Arkansas, has done a great job getting this team ready to play. They get up and down the floor. They play a physical brand of basketball. It'd be great for the SEC to get 3 teams in. Guys, any final thoughts on the Sweet 16 / our new Final Four before we head on to our final thought on the show?
Go Canes.
Yeah.
Canes. I got the Canes in my Elite 8 as well, Larry. So we're both rooting them Canes on this weekend. Well, that about wraps us up for the evening. If you guys like the content, please like, subscribe. You can find us at ATL Prime Sports across all platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. My final thought for the evening, guys, Major League Baseball starts next week. Get the hot dogs ready. Get the beer brewing. And get that elbow loose. It's time to chop, baby. Let's go Braves. 162-0 this year. I'm calling it. Perfect season.
Wow. Well, my final thought is an event that happened not really in Atlanta, but close enough to Atlanta that they call it Atlanta. Last weekend was the NASCAR race, first of the season down there, and Joey Logano won that. And here's the big news. That was the only automobile race of the weekend that did not end in a big crash. They were very civil. They raced to the end, and it was a pretty exciting race.
Larry, your final thought for the weekend, buddy?
My final thought surrounds one Cam Newton and his quest to get back into the NFL on a roster, and his proclamation that there ain't 32 Mickey Fickies that are better than him. There is a difference in worth and value, and his worth in his eyes has gotten to an all-time high. But until you understand what your value is, you'll never be able to reach where you want to go. He may not necessarily be starter material. He still may have all the tools, but sometimes you got to humble yourself to get yourself in the door and let your skills do the talking. Like back in the day, I used to say, let your fingers do the walking. And that's my final thought for tonight, fellas.
Yeah, and if
I love it.
If that didn't work out, then there's always the USFL. You know, he can come up here and throw the ball from Memphis.
The Roughnecks, right?
No, showboats.
Showboats, that's it. So that's it. I get those leagues confused. Well, folks, that wraps us up for the evening. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This has been ATL Prime Sports. For Wayne in Memphis, for Larry in Adairsville, for TC on the other side of Atlanta, I'm JJ. We'll see you next week. Get you one.